My parents bought my brother a car. He wrecked it drunk the first week. Dad said, "You're his brother. Cover it or get out of this family." I refused. My brother smashed the car with my bat, tried to frame me for fraud. I sent the camera footage to insurance. What they did next made Dad show up at my door begging. My name is Ethan. I'm 27. I'm a certified auto mechanic who runs a mobile repair business out of a rented garage on the east side of town. The garage costs $1,100 a month. My tools are worth $14,000, accumulated one at a time over 8 years. Starting with a $34 socket set I bought at 19 with money from a lube shop that paid $11.50 an hour and smelled like transmission fluid and regret. I built my work truck from a salvage frame and $6,400 in parts over 4 months of weekends. I know cars the way surgeons know bodies, which is to say I know what they sound like when something is wrong, and I know what it costs to fix it, and I know when someone is lying about how the damage happened. My brother Wade is 30. Wade has never changed his own oil, which isn't a crime, but should be. Wade is the kind of person who hands you his keys and says, "It's making a noise," and expects you to translate that into a diagnosis, a repair, and a bill he won't pay. He's been fired from 4 jobs in 6 years. He's had 2 DUIs before this story starts, costing my parents $3,400 and $5,000 in legal fees respectively, which they paid without blinking because Wade has bad luck with timing, which is my mother Patty's way of saying he drives drunk and gets caught. My father Glenn is a regional sales manager who communicates through ultimatums and handshakes and has never once entered my garage without calling it the shop. In air quotes, like the 400 square feet of tools and lifts and diagnostic equipment I built from nothing is a phase I'll grow out of. My mother Patty is a woman who bakes casseroles for neighbors, loves both her sons, and chose one of them. Her casseroles are excellent. Her judgment is not. The family ledger, if you're keeping track, Wade has received approximately $50,600 in family support over the last 6 years. $24,000 car, we'll get to that. $8,400 in DUI legal fees. $12,000 in rent bailouts across 3 apartments he was evicted from. $6,200 in credit card payoffs that Patty handles quietly through a joint account Glenn pretends not to notice. Total, $50,600. My column, $0. I moved out at 19, built the business, bought every tool, signed every lease, never asked for $1. The family calls what I do tinkering. They call what Wade does finding himself. Tinkering generates $68,000 a year in gross revenue. Finding himself generates $50,600 in parental bailouts. The numbers don't lie. The family does. At 18, while still living at home, Glenn charged me $350 a month in rent because I was working now and should contribute. Wade lived at home until 24 and paid $0. I paid $4,200 in rent before moving out. Patty later told cousin Mira that the money went toward Wade's first apartment deposit. I funded my brother's first lease without knowing it, from a bedroom I was renting, in a house where the other son lived for free. When Wade was 21 and I was 18, he drove me to a job interview at an auto body shop 40 minutes away because my truck wasn't running and the bus didn't go that far. He didn't complain. He bought me a gas station coffee on the way and said, "You're going to be good at this. You've always been good at fixing things." I got the job. It was the start of everything I built. He said it in a green Civic with a broken AC vent that whistled when you hit 60, and I remember the sound of that whistle because it's the last time I can point to and say that's the Wade I wish still existed. 3 weeks before this story starts, my parents bought Wade a $24,000 Toyota Camry. Brand new. Silver. Leather seats that smell like the chemical they spray on leather to make people think they're buying luxury instead of depreciation. The fresh start car. Wade had just lost his 4th job, a warehouse position he held for 5 months before a supervisor caught him sleeping in the break room during a shift, which Wade described as a disagreement about break policy, and which the supervisor described as unconscious at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday with his phone playing a podcast about cryptocurrency. The car was supposed to give him stability. That's Glenn's word. Stability. As if a $24,000 sedan could fix what 4 jobs, 2 DUIs, and $50,600 in bailouts couldn't. I found out about the car through Mira, not through my parents. They didn't call to tell me they were buying Wade a car. They didn't call because it didn't occur to them that the son who built his own truck from a salvage frame might have an opinion about purchasing a brand new Camry for the son who's been fired from every job he's held. I heard about it at a cousin's birthday party where Wade showed up in the new car and honked twice in the driveway. The way people honk when they want you to come outside and look at something, which is a behavior reserved for engagement rings and new cars and people who confuse possession with achievement. I walked out, saw the car. Silver. Clean. Dealer plate still on. I looked at Wade leaning against the hood with his arms crossed, grinning, and I looked at my truck in the driveway next to it. The salvage truck with the repainted quarter panels that don't quite match and the toolbox bolted to the bed that I welded the mounts for myself. And I thought about saying something. I didn't. I went back inside and ate cake and talked to Mira about her dental office and drove home in a truck that costs $6,400 and works every single day because I know what's inside it. Day 4. Not 6. 4. Wade rolled the Camry into a drainage ditch at 40 miles per hour on a residential street at 1:15 a.m. BAC 0.14. Third DUI. The car was towed. The driver's side was crushed against the ditch wall. The airbags deployed. Wade walked away with a bruised rib, a court date, and a phone call to Glenn that began with "Dad, don't freak out," which is a sentence that has never preceded good news in the history of the English language. The Camry was towed to Frank's Tow and Recovery on Route 9. I've dropped off parts at Frank's before. I know the yard. I know the cameras. I know what row they store sedans in. These details matter later. Glenn filed the insurance claim. This is important. Glenn filed it, not Wade, because the policy is in Glenn's name. The claim states, vehicle was parked on residential street, struck by unknown vehicle, driver fled. The police report states, driver Wade Mitchell, BAC 0.14, single vehicle accident, vehicle left roadway. The claim and the police report don't match. Glenn lied on the insurance form to avoid the DUI affecting his premiums. The fraud didn't start with Wade and the bat. It started with Glenn and a pen. The father who told me to cover it was already covering for himself. The adjuster flagged the car as likely totaled. The payout wouldn't cover the remaining loan because Glenn financed $20,000 after a $4,000 down payment and didn't buy gap insurance because Wade said it was a scam, which is a word Wade uses for anything that costs money and requires reading. The family was upside down on a dead car. Glenn called me. I was in my garage, standing at my workbench, hands smelling like brake cleaner and the metal shavings that collect in the grooves of your fingernails when you've been turning rotors all morning. I could hear the fluorescent lights humming, the specific buzz of lights I installed myself because the garage came with one bare bulb and a prayer. You know cars, Ethan. Fix it. Or cover the gap. Or you're done with this family. He said, you know cars the way someone says, you have a truck when they need to move a couch. Like my profession is a convenience they can requisition. Like 8 years of certifications and 5 a.m. diagnostics and crawling under vehicles in January are a family resource, not a career I built while they were spending $50,600 on the son who sleeps in break rooms and drives into ditches. He asked the $0 son to cover for the $50,600 son. He asked the mechanic to fix the car the drunk driver wrecked. I said no. Glenn hung up. The garage was quiet. Just the lights and the hum and the smell of brake cleaner and the specific silence of a man who just lost his family standing next to tools he bought one at a time over 8 years. I looked at the wall behind me. The bat was there, on its hooks, Pop's initials facing the workbench. It was the last time I'd see it there for 2 weeks. Act 2. The bat. The bat is a Louisville slugger. 34 inches. Ash wood. Weight. 31 ounces, though it feels heavier in memory. The way everything from childhood weighs more when you hold it as an adult because the hands are bigger and the meaning is different. My grandfather Pop gave it to me when I was 11. Pop was a welder who played in a local softball league until he was 58 and whose hands looked like the tools he used, heavy, scarred, cracked across the knuckles and lines that looked like the grain of the wood he handled. He smelled like Flux and Folgers coffee and the specific warmth of a workshop where the space heater has been running since 6 a.m. He died when I was 19. Left me the bat with a card that said, "For the one who fixes things." 5 words in Pop's handwriting, which was the handwriting of a man who used pins the way he used wrenches, firmly, without flourish, getting the job done. The family assumed he meant cars. I always thought he meant everything else. The card is folded into a small square and tucked inside the handle of the bat, where I put it the day of the funeral, where it has stayed for 8 years, where Wade didn't know to look because Wade never held the bat long enough to learn where the weight sits. Pop carved my initials into the handle. Yem, Ethan Mitchell. Cut with a pocket knife on a Saturday afternoon in his workshop while I sat on an overturned bucket and watched the curls of ashwood fall to the concrete floor. He blew the sawdust off and held it up and said, "Now it knows who it belongs to." I've kept the bat on hooks above the workbench in every garage I've rented since I was 19. For garages. For sets of hooks. Same bat. Same wall position. It's not sports memorabilia. It's the only thing in my garage I didn't buy, didn't build, didn't earn. It was given by the one person in my family who looked at what I was building and called it real. 2 years ago, Wade asked me for the bat. Casually. Family dinner. He was chewing a dinner roll and said, "Pop left that to the wrong grandson, you know. I actually played baseball." I said no. He shrugged, went back to the roll. But he remembered where the bat hung. Which wall? Which hooks? Which garage? The theft wasn't impulsive. The location was stored information. The request I denied 2 years ago was a scouting mission he didn't know was a scouting mission until he needed a weapon. 8 days after the wreck, at 1:22 a.m., camera 3 in my garage activated on motion detection. Wade entered through the side door. The one he knows is unlocked because he's borrowed tools 3 times before, each time without asking, each time returning them with less blade or more rust, which is how Wade treats everything he touches. He uses it and returns it diminished. Camera 1 caught the entrance. Camera 3 caught the rest. He walked directly to the back wall. Didn't look at the tools. Didn't touch the $14,000 in diagnostic equipment. Didn't pause at the workbench where I'd been rebuilding a carburetor that afternoon. The parts still laid out in the order I'd remove them because I organized things the way Pop taught me, systematically, so you can put them back. He walked to the hooks. Lifted the bat. Pop's initials passed under the fluorescent light for about half a second. Yem. Then he turned around. Left. Total time in the garage, 47 seconds. He came for one thing. He knew exactly where it was. He walked through the building I built from nothing and took the one piece of family off the wall. I didn't know any of this yet. I was asleep in my apartment, 2 miles away, in a bed I paid for, in a room that costs $875 a month, dreaming about nothing I can remember, while my brother was carrying my grandfather's bat to a tow yard to commit insurance fraud. At 1:47 a.m., the tow yard's perimeter camera captured Wade arriving by Uber. He walked to the Camry in row 3. The footage, which I've now watched 4 times and wish I could unwatch, shows him swinging the bat 14 times. Windshield first. 3 strikes. The glass spiderwebbed on the first, caved on the second, collapsed on the third. Then both headlights. Then the hood, for dents in a pattern that looked almost deliberate, like he was trying to write something in metal. Then every panel on the driver's side, which was already damaged from the ditch but not destroyed, not until Wade made it so. Between swings 8 and 9, he stops. Checks his phone. The screen light illuminates his face on the tow yard camera. He's reading something. Maybe a text. Maybe the time. Maybe nothing. But he pauses mid-destruction to look at a screen, which means this is not rage. This is schedule. He checks his work between swings the way a contractor checks a blueprint. Then he calls an Uber home. Total time at the yard, 11 minutes. 14 swings. 1 phone check. 1 Uber. This is a business transaction in a tow yard at 2 a.m., performed with a dead man's baseball bat by a man who was drunk, again, because the tow yard footage shows him stumbling when he exits the Uber, swinging wide on the first attempt, missing the hood entirely. He committed a DUI 4 days ago. He learned nothing. He's committing insurance fraud intoxicated. The pattern isn't bad luck with timing. The pattern is Wade. Wade filed a supplemental insurance claim the next morning. Continued vandalism by a family member. He named me. He told the adjuster I had anger issues and that the damage was retaliation for a family argument about money. The weapon listed, a baseball bat. Estimated supplemental damage, $18,000. The goal, push the car past the payout threshold into full replacement. Wade wasn't just committing fraud. He was trying to profit from the car he wrecked and then destroyed by blaming the brother who refused to clean up his mess. The adjuster who took the call was Sandra Chin. 11 years with the company. She also handled Glenn's original accident claim, the one that didn't match the police report. She remembered because she'd made a note in the file 3 words long. Story doesn't match. Now the same family was calling about the same car with a new story. Sandra didn't say anything to Wade. She forwarded both claims to fraud. Act 3. The camera. I found out about the fraud claim the way you find out about most things that change your life, at a bad time, in a bad place, while doing something else. I was under a Chevy Tahoe replacing a CV joint when my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from an insurance adjuster asking me to confirm my involvement in a vandalism incident involving a 2024 Toyota Camry. I slid out from under the Tahoe, grease on my forearms. The garage was cold because it was November, and the space heater I bought for $89 at a hardware store doesn't reach the lift bay. I played the voicemail twice. The second time I noticed my hands were leaving grease marks on the phone screen. My brother had named me in an insurance fraud claim. He had taken my grandfather's bat from my wall and used it to destroy a car our parents bought him and told an insurance company I did it. I sat in the chair by the workbench. The chair I sit in when I'm taking breaks between jobs, the one with the cracked vinyl seat and the wobble in the left front leg that I keep meaning to weld and never do because fixing other people's things is my job and fixing my own things is always tomorrow. I looked at the wall. The hooks were empty. The bat was gone. 2 hooks and a shadow, a dust outline shaped like a Louisville Slugger on a wall I painted myself 3 years ago with leftover primer from a client's garage door project. I hadn't noticed it was gone because I'd been working 12-hour days and the wall is behind me when I'm at the bench and you stop seeing things that are always there until they aren't. Part of me wanted to call Wade and ask him if he remembered the green Civic and the gas station coffee and the whistling AC vent and the version of himself that said, "You're going to be good at this." Part of me wanted to call Glenn and say the number, $50,600 to 0, and ask which son the adjuster should be calling about anger issues. And a small part of me, the part one sat with longest in that cold garage with grease on my hands and empty hooks on the wall and Pop's shadow staring at me from where the bat should be, wanted to log into my camera system and find nothing. Wanted the cameras to be broken. Wanted to not know. Because knowing means doing something. And doing something means losing the family I was already losing. And the only difference between losing a family slowly and losing one on camera is that the camera gives you a timestamp for the moment it ended. But I'm a mechanic. I diagnose problems. I pull the data. I look at what's broken and figure out how it broke. I don't pretend the engine light isn't on because ignoring a warning light has never once fixed the engine. I open the camera app on my phone. For cameras. For angles. Camera 1. Garage entrance, 1:22 a.m. Wait. Side door. He enters the way someone enters a place they've been before. No hesitation. No searching for the handle. Just a hand on a door and a step through it. Camera 3. Back wall, 1:22 a.m. Wait. Walking past the workbench, past the tools, past 8 years of my life arranged on pegboard and shelves and magnetic strips. He doesn't touch anything. Doesn't look. He walks to the hooks. Lifts the bat. Pop's initials pass under the fluorescent light for about half a second. Yem. Then he turns. Leaves. 47 seconds. I watched it twice. The second time I paused on the frame where the initials are visible. Yem Pop's handwriting in ash wood, carved with a pocket knife on a Saturday afternoon. The initials that were supposed to tell the bat who it belonged to. The bat knew. Wade didn't care. I called Frank at the tow yard. Frank is a man who smokes thin cigars and has a magnetic support your local tow guy bumper sticker on his office door and has been running the yard for 19 years. He was eating what sounded like chips when he answered, which he didn't stop eating during the conversation, which is Frank's way of saying the world doesn't pause for your problems, and also these are good chips. He pulled his security footage, watched it, called me back. The chips were gone. I've been running this yard 19 years. I've seen people cry over their cars, scream at adjusters, throw tools at fenders. I've never seen someone Uber to my yard at 2 a.m. with a baseball bat and check his phone between swings. That's not grief. That's a project. Frank provided the footage and offered to testify if needed. He said it like he was offering to hold a door open. No drama. Just a man who runs a yard and knows what damage looks like and knows this wasn't it. I sent both sets of footage to the insurance company's fraud division. My garage cameras and Frank's tow yard cameras. The adjuster who received them was Sandra Chun. The same adjuster who flagged the original claim. The same adjuster who noted that Glenn's accident report didn't match the police report. The same adjuster who took Wade's call about my anger issues and wrote the words "caller seems rehearsed" in her notes, which I found out later through the investigator. Sandra had been watching this family's claims for months. She was waiting for the piece she didn't have. I gave her 4 camera angles. The investigation expanded fast. They pulled Glenn's original claim. Parked, struck by unknown vehicle. They pulled the police report. BAC 0.14, single vehicle accident. The claims didn't match. Glenn had filed a false accident report. The fraud wasn't just Wade's bad stunt. It was Glenn's original filing. 2 claims. 2 lies. 1 policy. 1 family that bet everything on the mechanic not checking his own cameras. The fraud investigator pulled the premium history. Over 5 years, premiums on Glenn's policy had increased 340% due to claims tied to Wade. For claims total, 3 suspicious. 1 previously approved, a $4,800 parking lot hit and run from 2 years ago that nobody investigated because the amount was below the scrutiny threshold. This was Wade's first fraud. It just wasn't his first one on camera. The $4,800 from 2 years ago means the pattern is older than the Camry, older than the bat, older than the garage cameras. The family had been running small cons through Glenn's insurance for years. The Camry was just the one where someone remembered to look up. The insurance company referred the case to the district attorney. Insurance fraud above $10,000 is a felony in our state. Wade's supplemental claim, $18,000. Glenn's original false claim, $24,000. Both crossed the threshold. The family that told me to cover it or leave was now facing felony referrals that I didn't file, didn't request, and didn't cause. I sent footage. The institutions did the rest. That's how systems work when you give them information. They don't care about family dynamics. They care about documentation. I'm a mechanic. Documentation is what I do. Cousin Mira sent me the family group chat. The thread showed Patty coaching Wade on what to tell the adjuster. Glenn discussing how to keep Ethan out of this, meaning keep me from finding out, not protect me. Wade saying, Ethan won't do anything. He never does. And Patty replying, exactly. That's why this works. I read that exchange sitting in my garage at 11 p.m. The screen glowed in the dark. The heater had shut off an hour ago, and the concrete floor was cold through my boots. Ethan won't do anything. He never does. That sentence is the thesis of my entire childhood, my entire relationship with this family, my entire position in the system they built. The reliable son. The passive son. The one who absorbs. They built a fraud strategy on my personality. Patty typed, exactly, like she was confirming a grocery order. Before showing up at my door, Glenn called. Offered to make this right. He said, what if I put $5,000 in your account? Just tell the insurance company you're not pressing the issue. I recorded the call. A bribery attempt. New evidence. Glenn still thought I was the son who absorbs things. He didn't know I'd become the son who records them. Uncle Ray called that evening. Glenn's brother. Retired claims adjuster. 30 years in the industry. His voice had the specific tiredness of a man who's watched his brother make predictable mistakes for decades and stopped being surprised 3 decades ago. He said, your father called me asking how to make this go away. I told him it doesn't go away. I told him 16 years ago that covering for Wade would cost him everything. He didn't listen. He's not going to listen now. But I wanted you to know that not everyone in this family thinks you're wrong. Ray didn't provide documentation. Just one sentence from inside the family that said, you're not crazy. Sometimes that's enough. Wade tried to recant. Called the insurance company. Changed his story. I was confused. I don't remember saying it was my brother. The adjuster noted this as a modification of a sworn statement, which strengthened the fraud case. Wade's instinct to lie compounded even when the truth was playing on 4 screens in a fraud investigator's office. Glenn arrived at my apartment at 6:47 a.m. I know the time because my Ring doorbell logged it the way my Ring doorbell logs everything, which is a habit I picked up from running the garage cameras, which is a habit I picked up from being a mechanic, which is a profession my family calls tinkering. The tinkering caught the fraud. The doorbell caught the begging. Everything in my life that my family dismisses is the thing that works. His shirt was untucked. His shoes were untied. Both of them. Laces dragging on the porch concrete like something he forgot to finish, Like a man who got dressed in the dark or got dressed too fast or got dressed the way you get dressed when the thing you're driving toward is more urgent than the clothes you're wearing. He was holding the insurance company's letter in one hand. I could see the logo through the envelope. He was holding the bat in the other hand. The Louisville Slugger. It had been returned to the family house after being cataloged as evidence. He'd driven to my apartment holding Pop's bat across his lap like something he didn't know how to carry, which is exactly what it is, because Glenn has never known how to carry the things Pop left behind. Pop left tools and values and a bat with initials on it. Glenn carried none of them well. He held it out. "This is yours." I took it. 34 inches. Ash wood. Pop's initials. Yem. I could feel the grain under my thumb. The weight was the same. The meaning had changed. The bat went from the wall to Wade's hands to a tow yard to an evidence room to Glenn's lap to mine. Full circle. The card was still inside the handle. For the one who fixes things. I didn't check. I just knew. Some things you trust because you put them there yourself. Glenn stood on my porch. His eyes were red, but not wet. He said, "I need your help." Same words. Same construction. Every time this family needs something, they come to the son who got nothing and use the same sentence. "I need your help. You know cars. Cover the gap." Every request assumes my time, my skills, my money, my silence are resources they have a right to withdraw. Like I'm a joint account they never deposited into. Part of me wanted to let him in. To make coffee in the kitchen he'd never seen and sit at the table he didn't know I owned and explain, calmly, the way I explain engine problems to customers, what went wrong and how to fix it. Part of me wanted to hand him the footage and say, "Watch this. Watch what your other son did with Pop's bat. Watch what your wife typed in the group chat. Watch what you filed on that insurance form." And a small part of me, the part that remembers the green Civic and the gas station coffee and the version of Wade that said, "You're going to be good at this," wanted to pretend none of it happened. To go back to being the son who absorbs things. Because absorbing is easier than documenting. And silence is easier than footage. And family is easier than truth until it isn't. I said, "You told me to cover it or leave the family." I left. The insurance company didn't. Glenn stood there. His hands, which had held the letter and the bat and were now holding nothing, hung at his sides. His laces dragged on concrete. His face was doing something I'd only seen once before, when Pop died, the only other time I saw Glenn lose control of his body. He didn't cry, didn't yell, just stood there, holding nothing, on a porch he'd never visited. Glenn has never been to my apartment. Not once. In 3 years of me living here, building my business, paying my rent, the first time my father saw where I live is the morning he came to ask me to save him from the consequences of a family that spent $50,600 on the wrong son and $0 on the one who could have helped. I went inside, closed the door. Not slammed. Closed. The way you close something you don't plan to open again. Hung the bat back on the wall. Same hooks. Same garage. The dust outline from 2 weeks of absence is still there. 2 clean spots shaped like a Louisville Slugger. The bat fits exactly. Pop's initials face the workbench. The outline will fill back in. The wall will look the same. But I look at the hooks first now, every morning, before the tools, before the truck, before the work orders. I look at the hooks to make sure the bat is still there. That's new. Wade's lawyer negotiated a plea. Misdemeanor fraud. 200 hours community service. 2 years probation. His 3rd DUI is still pending in a different court with a different judge who doesn't know about the insurance fraud yet, but will, because court records are public and prosecutors talk, and Wade's name is developing the kind of file thickness that makes clerks sigh when they pull it. No carrier in the state will insure Wade for 3 years minimum. Glenn's case is separate and still open. The policy is canceled. The insurance company is pursuing recovery on the previous $4,800 claim from 2 years ago, the one that was approved because nobody investigated. Glenn is driving without coverage, which I know because Ray told me during a phone call where Ray also mentioned that Glenn sits in the driveway some mornings before work, just sitting in the car, engine running, not going anywhere. Patty hasn't called. The family group chat is silent. The last message in it is still Patty's. Exactly. That's why this works. Nobody's deleted it. It sits there like a headstone for a strategy that died on camera. I got a call the day after the doorstep. A woman needed her brakes done. Found me through a Google review that says, "Honest mechanic, fair price, shows up on time," which is 3 things nobody in my family has ever said about me. I drove to her house in the salvage truck I built for $6,400. Did the job in her driveway. Checked the pads, turned the rotors, bled the lines, test drove the car around the block. She paid $280. Cash. I drove home. Normal day. No family demanding I cover something. No brother stealing from my wall. No father on my porch with untied shoes and a letter and a bat and a sentence that starts with, I need. Just a mechanic in a truck he built, doing work nobody in his family respects, earning money nobody in his family asks for anymore, in a life nobody tried to take until they needed something from it. The truck cost me $6,400 and 4 months of weekends. The car cost my parents $24,000 and a family. I'm driving to a brake job in a vehicle I built with my hands. My father told me those hands were only good for tinkering. The tinkering works fine. The $24,000 car is in a salvage yard. My truck is on the road. Some things you build. Some things you buy. The ones you build tend to last. If your family ever made you the cleanup crew for the golden child's mess, I'd read that story. Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want more.